How to help a toddler adjust to a bed. Moving from a crib to a bed is a big transition for a toddler, so the adjustment process can take some time. Some toddlers may be suspicious of their new bed at first, while others may take full advantage of the fact that they can now easily get in and out and refuse to stay in it. Whatever the issue, it's important that you deal with it in a calm, patient manner and give your toddler time to adjust. Luckily, there are some things you can do to make the process easier. Part 1: Choosing the right time. 1. Consider whether your child is too big for their crib. If your child can no longer stretch out fully in their crib, or the crib simply looks too cramped for them to sleep comfortably in, then it's time to consider moving them to a proper bed. 2. Observe whether the child can climb out of the crib. When a child is able to climb out of their own crib, or at least lean over the sides, it's a sure sign that he needs to be transferred to a bed. A crib can actually become dangerous for a toddler, as they may fall when trying to climb out. 3. Think about whether your child is potty training. If your toddler is currently potty training, it will be easier for them to quickly climb out of a bed to reach the potty when they need to go. Most toddlers will not have enough bladder control to call for you and wait to be lifted out of a crib before going. 4. Consider whether there is a new baby on the way. If mom is pregnant and there is a new baby on the way, it's a good idea to move your toddler out of the crib, which you'll soon need for the new baby, a couple of months before the baby arrives. You want your toddler to be happy and settled in their new bed by the time you have a new baby to deal with, and ensure that the toddler isn't jealous of the baby for taking his crib. 5. Respect the child's wishes if he asks to sleep in a bed. If your child is old enough to actually express his desire to sleep in a bed, you should listen to him and do your best to transfer him to a bed as quickly as possible. Maybe he's observed an older sibling sleeping in a proper bed, or heard that a friend from daycare is no longer sleeping in a crib, and he wants to be like them. At a certain age, toddlers want to feel grown up, and moving to a big boy bed is part of this. 6. Avoid transferring the child to a bed in times of stress. Things like the arrival of a new baby, starting kindergarten, or moving house can all be stressful for your child. Therefore, you should avoid switching your toddler to a new bed at this time, as it can simply add to their stress and make them resent their new sleeping arrangement, which is the last thing you want. Part 2: Preparing the child. 1. Explain why your child needs to move to a bed. Before you do anything else, it's a good idea to sit down with your child and explain exactly what's happening. Explain that he is a big boy now, so he needs to sleep in a big boy bed. Cribs are just for babies. Gauge your child's reaction to what you're telling him and react accordingly. If he seems enthusiastic about the idea, help him to get excited about it. If he seems upset by the idea, comfort him and gently explain why it's necessary. 2. Read picture books on the topic of sleeping in a bed. There are plenty of toddler-friendly picture books on the topic of moving from a crib to a big bed. Find some at your local bookstore or library. As you read them to your child, encourage your toddler to identify with the main character of the books, as this will make it easier for him to accept the transition to a new bed, just like the main character. 3. Turn it into a big event. Another way to get your child excited about moving to a bed is to turn it into a big event. Set a date in advance, and talk about the big day and the days running up to it, almost as if you were celebrating a birthday. This will help the child to look forward to sleeping in their new bed. 4. Say goodbye to the crib in a special way. If you think it would help the child to accept the transition, you could consider saying goodbye to the crib in a special way. This might be something as simply as getting the toddler to actually say goodbye or "I love you" to the crib, or to draw it a picture. You could make it seem more final by allowing the toddler to help in dismantling the crib, or dropping it off to family member or friend's house. 5. Do not surprise the child with a new bed. Simply buying a new bed for the child and setting it up in their room without their knowledge might come as too much of a shock. It's better to talk to him about getting a new bed in advance, or even to bring him to the store with you when you collect it. 6. Let the child choose his own bedding. Your child may find it easier to adjust to his new bed if he has some input into the process. While it can be risky to allow the child to pick out the actual bed by himself, you could easily allow him to choose his own bed sheets. There are many attractive bed sheet designs available for kids nowadays, featuring cartoon characters and fun themes. If your child tends to be indecisive and you want to limit his choices somewhat, pick out 2 or 3 designs yourself, perhaps ones that match with the decor in his bathroom, and just allow him to choose between those. Part 3: Helping your child adjust. 1. Be patient yet persistent. For the first few nights after moving into the big boy bed, your child might be very taken with his found ability to get in and out of bed as he pleases. This can result in some difficulties at bedtime. Your child may insist on getting out of bed every 5 minutes, to ask a question, get a drink of water, go to the potty, etc. Although this can be frustrating at first, it's important that you are patient. Allow your child to do this once or twice, then firmly explain to them that they need to stay in their new bed and go to sleep, otherwise they'll have to go back in the crib. Over time, the novelty of the new bed will wear off. 2. Comfort your child if they are upset. For some children, moving from a crib to a new bed can be a scary experience. They may feel less safe in the new bed or be afraid of falling out. When this happens, it's important that you go to them and comfort them. Try to alleviate any fears they have regarding the new bed early on, otherwise going to bed every night might become an ordeal. If necessary, put a night light in the child's room, check for monsters under the bed, or even put up a railing along the side of the bed to prevent the child from falling out. 3. Train the child to stay in bed. If the child is afraid of separation and keeps hopping into bed to come visit you, you'll have to train them to stay in bed till they fall asleep. This may require you lying down beside the child for the first few nights until they fall asleep. However, it's important that you don't make a habit of this, as it can become very inconvenient over time. After a few nights, switch to sitting in a chair beside the child's bed, holding their hand if necessary, until they fall asleep. You can move further away from the child over time, until they can fall asleep in the bed without you. 4. Keep some familiar objects in the bed. If the child is used to sleeping with certain toys or a specific blanket or pillow in his crib, then you can help the transition by switching these familiar items to the new bed. These familiar items can be very comforting for the child and make the experience seem less overwhelming. 5. Place the new bed in the same spot as the crib. If possible, place the new bed in the exact same position as the crib in the child's room. This will make the change feel less obvious, helping the child to adjust more quickly. 6. Let the child take his afternoon nap in the new bed. If the child refuses to sleep through the night in his new bed, then a good way to help him adjust is to allow him to just take his afternoon nap in the new bed. Once he realizes that the new bed is not so scary, and actually quite comfortable, he will be more willing to try sleeping there at night. 7. Stick with the toddler's normal bedtime routine. Just because your child has moved to a bigger bed does not mean that their bedtime routine has to change. You should not allow them to stay up any later or change any other aspects of their routine. In fact, keeping everything else exactly the same as before will probably help your toddler to adjust more quickly. So just like before, your toddler should have a set time for taking their bath, changing into their pajamas, brushing their teeth, reading a bedtime story, etc. 8. Praise the child. If the child sleeps through the night in their new bed, or at least makes an effort to, you should congratulate him and praise him on his accomplishment. Mention what a big boy he is now, how proud of him you are and what nice dreams he must be having. Only speak of the new bed in positive terms, and your toddler will quickly adjust to their new sleeping situation.